Welcome everyone here to RB's Toy Box. You know, if you're like me and you're a collector, you go to yard sales, you go to flea markets, you go to antique stores, you go to everywhere that has what you're looking for when it comes to vintage electronics or toys. But some of them, they're broken, right? And I've mentioned in my videos in the past, a lot of the stuff that I get here at RB's Toy Box, I get really cheap because it's broken. And I'm not an electrical engineer or anything like that, but I know enough to be able to pick something apart and look to see, hey, what's broken? And sometimes it's just as simple, especially with some of these older toys like this right here that I took apart and completely redid this, all the wiring, the motor, everything. It was easy to do because back then they didn't have a bunch of circuit boards and stuff that you had to mess with. But in doing so, you know, you had to do a little bit of testing, find out what didn't work and what did work. And in order to do that, you needed to have a battery pack that you could run to your different wires for the headlights or the motor or something like that. Now, sometimes, you know, us old schoolers, you know, we'll use a little battery pack like this, and then you got to like make it work for one battery or two battery depending on your voltage. But I have found a little technique that I want to share with you today, so that maybe when you're out there looking to build or rebuild some of your toys, this little kit that I'm going to show you how to put together today, and I'm going to have all of the links in the description below for the places that I purchased, you know, this stuff for. But it's going to allow you to be able to take something like this and be able to test, or at least add power to different things that you want to bypass a circuit board and make sure the LED lights are running, or bypass a circuit board and make sure a motor or something's going to be working, and then control the voltage going into it, which is going to be very important, obviously, for what we're trying to do. So with that being said, if you're new here to RB's Toy Box, please like and subscribe down below. We broke the 1,000 barrier where we've got subscribers on the channel. I'm so happy to see that, but we want to see it grow, right? We want to see it build. And for those that are brand new here to RB's Toy Box, hey, check out my channel intro vid, and then stay tuned for the getting into this video.
1, 2, 3, go! Step into the magic on my fun-filled stage. RB's Toy Box is great for kids of any age. From Star Trek to A-Team and retro toys too. Come join on my journey, making videos just for you.
All right, so let's get right into it. So there's some things that you're going to need. Again, make sure that you're checking the list down below. I'm going to show you where I get all this stuff. It's all Chinese. It's all from Amazon for the most part, eBay, places like that. And especially on something like this, you don't have to worry about going pro, right, to get the expensive stuff yet. If this works for you and it works out to this something that you really like and it's useful for you, and maybe it just burns out every 6 or 8 months, get a better one. But, you know, but use the $9 one instead of buying the $50 one. I'm just saying. And that's what I do a lot of times. You know, I'll try out the cheap stuff and go from there. So we mentioned we need to have these, kind of a parts list. So we need these. I got these from Amazon, a 2-pack for $9. Dirt cheap. It comes with the little plugs that you would normally put into, you know, a tester or something like this. We're gonna snip those off. So, you know, don't need them. We're gonna get rid of those. You can create a second set or something with these. This particular set that I bought from Amazon comes with the alligator clip, so you can run a second set of wires for this if you wanted to. Perfectly fine, no problem there. You're going to need a battery. Now, this is a 15 amp hour battery that's normally used for a wheelchair. It's an AGM battery, a glass mat battery. Now, these, like I said, for wheelchairs, for security cameras, and anything that uses a 12-volt steady system, they're beautiful. You can turn them upside down, sideways, and it doesn't matter. It's not liquid like a car battery. Now, I have a bunch of these left over because I've been, you know, I've been in wheelchairs since, well, forever. At least an electric one I got in 2009 was my first electric wheelchair. Before then, it was, you know, one of those kind of deals. But I got my first one, and it used these kind of batteries, and you can pick these up on Amazon. Now, the 15 amp hours will last you forever. I'm using these because I have a bunch left over. I recently upgraded to a lithium-ion battery for my accessories on my wheelchair. So I got a bunch of these I don't use anymore. Lithium-ion's more expensive, but man, do they last longer. The TV, bubble blower, stereo system, everything I have equipped on my wheelchair right now, that one AGM battery replaces 4 of these. That's cool. A little bit more expensive, but man, does it last. And it's lighter. I mean, this thing, like 9 pounds. The other one, 2.5 pounds. I mean, it's, whoever come up with that stuff, super smart, way smarter than me. So we need a battery. You can also use these. These are, I mean, $30 to $55. Depends on where you buy them from. These are 12 volt. You might actually choose to use this for testing, and here's why. Not only are we going to put a variable voltage on here, which is kind of what today's video is all about, but it also already has a direct dedicated 5 volt, low amperage, and then it has a 12 volt plug on it that you use something like this one right here that you can also buy from Amazon in a 10 pack, like $4, dirt cheap. I use these for everything. I mean, great quick connectors, disconnectors, connectors. They hold 12 volt, no problem. They go up to like, I don't know, 15, 18 amps, something like that. So just about anything toy-wise is going to be perfectly fine for these car electronics, anything like that. So this works really well. It's kind of expensive for what we're using it for, especially if you have an old one of these laying around. You can also, cheaper, get the 7.5 AGM battery from Amazon for like 15, 20 bucks. Really inexpensive. And that 7.5 amp hour battery will last you for this type of low voltage testing 6 months. I mean, you won't have to charge that thing up hardly at all. But if you do decide to use an AGM battery, which these are AGMs as well, you want to make sure you charge them up every once in a while, maybe 3 months at the most. Otherwise, the batteries will depreciate inside and they just won't last. I have had these batteries last up to 3 years. They're only rated for a year because you keep them on a charger when you're not using them, and that's what they're designed for. That's why they, you know, they tell you to always charge up your wheelchair. Now, like I said, we've used these before, but that's not what we want to do here. The beauty of these is these guys right here. Now, you can get these. This is a dial down battery situation. My light go off for. That's weird. Turn this back on. There it goes. This is a step down voltage. If you've seen my proton pack videos, I actually have these on my Ghostbusters proton pack that I built from Halloween Express. And I wanted to do this because I was installing a stereo system into my Ghostbusters proton pack, along with electronics that supported 12 volts. So I needed something to step the power down to run the other electronics in there that were only rated at 4.5 volts. I also was running wires that was being powered from my proton pack down to my Spangler wand, which of course is 4.5 volts. So I needed something to step it down. You try to pump 12 volts into your Spangler wand, the smoke that you're coming out with will not be the ghost that you just busted. It will be the blue smoke of death. But these things work really good. Now, depending on the one that you get, they range in price and quality. I have bought several of these. They work really, really well. You have a dialable kind that look literally identical to this. Matter of fact, the one that I have on the Ghostbusters proton pack has the little dialer here at the top and then an on and off switches on the side. This one looks practically identical. It's just wired a little different to where you have the input voltage, output voltage, and then you hold one and tune it. I'm going to show that to you here in just a minute, but you don't tune it with the screw. You tune it with these down here, input, output. You can measure the voltage coming in and dial the measurement going out. That's the beauty of it. Now, some things that you can do with this in addition. There's going to be some people out there that don't like what I'm getting ready to do because I'm just mounting this raw to the top of the battery. But this is desktop testing, right? I mean, it's literally going to set right there, hooked up to my lead, so that when I need it, it's right there, plug the baby in, good to go. You can also wire a switch to it, so you can turn it on and off if you want to. It's easy to do. You just run the negative lead or the positive lead over to the switch, and the switch over to the other side, tape it to the side, or whatever you're going to do. If you want to use a project box on Amazon, eBay, and a variety of other places, and I keep mentioning that because Radio Shack is closed. When I first started building my wheelchair many years ago, my custom one, with all the bells and whistles and RGB lights and everything on it, I rebuilt that like 70 times. I mean, because I would come up with something new and go and rebuild it. I'm a tinkerer. I love to tinker with that thing. And I kept Radio Shack in business all the way to the bitter end when they finally folded. But in the meantime, you can still get some of these El Cheapo electronics, wiring pieces, stuff like that, Chinese made from Amazon or whatever. They work just fine for our low voltage applications with no problems, no complications. Nothing's bursting on fire or anything like that. But if you prefer to use a project box, do it, okay, if you feel more comfortable doing that. But for what we're doing, I'm going to show you how to secure it. It won't matter, at least to me, okay? I hope I'm clear enough on that, so we can cut down on the hate mail. Now, the other thing we're going to need is some wire leads. You just need a short piece of wire. It does not need to be super thick, nor does it need to be super small, okay? We don't want to use wires that you would normally use for like RGB lighting or something like that. We want to use something a little bit thicker. Now, if you like RB's Toy Box, you probably have a box of old wires that you have taken stuff apart with, and you just can grab you a nice little piece of wire right here, put you a couple blade connectors on there, and then crimp them down. Whether you're going to use a professional crimping tool or you're going to use a pair of pliers like this, either one, just make sure they're super snug, good to go. I also, if you're going to be using any kind of electronics, you can tell this is not scripted. I don't have a producer standing there reading the lines to me. But when I'm putting something like this in a moving target, like my vehicles, wheelchair, any kind of electronics, which, by the way, I've been doing semi-professionally for years. I mentioned earlier, I'm not an electronics engineer, but I have been working with electronics since I was 6 years old. That story, by the way, is on rbstoybox.com, how I got started in working with electronics. Later on, I owned my own business, putting in, professional stereo systems and custom systems down in Florida, and then ultimately worked in, environmental electronics and stuff like that with the Air Force. So I've got some experience with it, but could I sit here and tell you ohms and all of that stuff? Yeah, I could, but I'm not going to. There's some people on this channel, by the way, or subscribers to this channel that are electronic engineers. They have some channels. If you see some comments down below, matter of fact, if you are an electronics engineer and you have some tips and tricks for those who watch RB's Toy Box, please put your YouTube channel down below so they can like and subscribe to you as well. There's a lot of people on this channel that are like faith and fellowship, right? Dealing with collecting and antiquing and toy repair and stuff like that. If that's you as well, and you have a YouTube channel you want to share on RB's Toy Box's comments, please do. I would be tickled to death for you to do that. Just don't bash me at the same time. But I use hot glue down here around the edges just to give that little extra something on both connection points. It just gives you a little bit of extra. And the beauty of that, especially if you decide to use it around here, it's really easy to pull right off if you do need to do a repair. Now, the first thing I'm going to do on this is grab this. I'm going to put double stick tape on the bottom of it, and I'm going to stick this baby right down. Yes, I have new glasses on order. These are marked extremely well, by the way. They have marked in and out, and they have positive and negative marked very clearly. I love that. So I'm going to just basically stick this baby right down, double check, in, yep, good to go, just like that. Okay? Now, I'm going to spin that around, and I'm going to get out my little precision screwdriver. Now the trick with these Chinese pieces like this is where the connection point goes right there. Even if you screw them all the way back out, all the way to the flush at the top, sometimes that dangling piece of metal inside just won't go up. Okay, it's not spring-loaded. Again, we're talking $9 for 2 of these. We're not talking high-level electronics here. So you can take something like this, skinny screwdriver, whatever, and just gently jab that in there once you have the screw all the way turned up, and then just kind of poke that in there a little bit, wiggle it, and put it in there and wiggle it, and that's going to give you enough room for your wires to go in. The last thing you want to do is put your wires in there and have them get all frayed. Okay, so you want to make sure that's a really nice tightly wound. Now some of the followers here on RB's Toy Box are going to tell you to dip these, okay, solder dip them. I have no problem with that. If you want to solder dip them, great. If you are the ones that put the little ends on these that have the little sharp points on them and you're going to crimp that down, knock yourself out. This is a quick and dirty application. Now to keep that from ever being a problem, when I put these in here and tighten them down, I'm going to wrap this in tape so that they can't move. Again, this is just a desktop application for me, so I can quickly plug it in, dial it to 3.5, 4.5, whatever I'm testing, grab my leads and poke them in the wire, boom, I know that it works or not. Okay, now let's get back to it. So the first thing I want to do is grab these right here, and then look, I have this in the correct direction. You notice I've checked that 3 or 4 times. I want to make sure. And then my negative is on this side, positive's on this side. I made sure that these are not frayed, they're tightened, they're nice and tight. I'm going to grab this right here, and I'm going to just slide these in. Slide that one in there on the positive side, all the way into the back. And if it doesn't go all the way in, wiggle it a little bit, give it a little bit of room. Give it a little love. There you go. Slide it in, and then screw it down. Now before you get it too tight, right when you start feeling resistance, let go. Grab the green piece right here, then snug it down. What you don't want is this thing shifting on the board. If it shifts on the board and breaks the solders, then all of a sudden you got a loose connection and things are like flashing and you don't know what's going on. So give yourself a little extra precaution on that and tighten it down. The other reason why I mentioned that you'd want to make sure that there's no frays on your wires whatsoever is when you put these things in here, the only thing separating them is this little skinny divider. That's it. You don't want these wires touching. Even though this is super low voltage, 12 volts, it can still overheat your battery, right? And cause you some problems. Maybe burn out your electronics, anything like that. So it just takes a few extra seconds to be precautious. As a matter of fact, again, not using a project box, I'm going to tape these wires down, make sure they don't move. Here we go. I'm going to take my tape, tape. Where's the end of my tape? Well, there it is. Found it. And tape it down. Nice and snug. Wrap it all the way around. You say, why do you do that? Because this is Florida. And things get hot in Florida. And tape has a tendency of coming off. So you wrap it all the way around into it itself. All right, there we go. So that isn't going anywhere. Okay? Now I'm just going to pull these up and plug them in. Red on red, black on black. And then we can take a look here. We've got our green light that is on. I don't know if you can see that or not. Can you see it? There we go. And no, anyway. Now let's get the power on. I'm going to click this button right here. And we can see we have 12.4 volts going in. If we push this button right here, we have 3.5 volts going out. Now, all I got to do is push and hold this button right here. It's going to flash, just like your old Timex watch. And then go this way down, this way up, or this way down, actually, and this way up. It's backwards. Okay? So you can dial this in very quickly and easily to the exact voltage that you need, and then push and hold, And there you go. Now you can take this one right here and push it, and it looks like it's off, and it's not, okay? So that's why you either want to mount a switch to this, where you just take one of these leads, run it over to a switch that maybe you tape on the side or in a project box, and then run the other lead back to its original source. You don't want to mix positive and negative. You're only doing this on one lead, okay? So take this to the switch, back up to here, boom, you got a switch you can turn it on and off with. Me, that's my switch. I'm just going to unplug one of these leads just like that when I'm not using it. Again, quick and dirty is what we're looking at here. Most of this is just to show you this little guy right here and how it can be a huge advantage to you when it comes to testing out your toys. So that's the first part of it. The second part is just as simple. We're going to take these end leads right here and just poke them right in here. Hopefully you can see it on the camera. Good. And then grab our screwdriver, woo, right there. Slide this one in the positive. Tighten it down. Again, I get it down to where I feel resistance. Hold on to the green piece and then snug it down. Green piece. That makes sense. Here, this one's a little frayed. Nope, good. All right, in we go. Other side, positive out. You say, what did you look for? I made sure that the leads weren't touching. Okay. Now, I always double, triple, and quadruple check this stuff. Let me show you why. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but you see the scar tissue around there? When I was working on C-130s, one of the things that they tell you in environmental electronics, don't wear your wedding ring. Well, I was the dumb airman who wore his wedding ring, and then after the 5 checks that you're supposed to do to make sure that your partner turned off the power, to find out that they didn't hit the right breaker, and then I go in there to release the control panel and my ring grounded. This thing turned bright red. I mean, literally when I pulled, it felt a little tingly, and when I pulled it out, it was glowing, literally like a glow, I mean, just bright red. Fortunately, we'd already serviced the aircraft, so I run back there, I spun off the lid for the igloo and slid my hand down in the water and cooled it down. But it literally fused the skin to my wedding ring, and the doctors had to like literally take a scalpel and trim it around. So I have scar tissue under there, my permanent wedding ring, and I've been married 38 years here coming up, well, 39 years coming up in June. That's really close. So I'm not worried about the scar tissue now. But now, let's go ahead and tape one more time. Where'd I put my tape? Tape, tape, tape. Here you are. So you learn all kinds of stuff, right? Experience is generally gathered from, is rarely gathered from a book. Sometimes you do honestly learn more from trial and error, as long as those trials and errors don't get too expensive. I guess that's okay, but I do try to learn as much as I can from my predecessors and so forth. So now I have input here, output here, goes into these two guys right here. Now the trick for this, by the way, is you don't want to order these with the blunt ones. You want them sharp, because we're going to be stabbing these into wires, especially the ones like I'm going to get ready to repair a fallout helmet that the box isn't working, or the little electronic circuit port. So that's what I'm trying to repair. But in order to repair that, I need to bypass the board and make sure everything else is working without cutting and splicing and everything else. This is going to allow me to do that. I stick them right in there and make sure everything's working. Now let's test these and make sure we have the appropriate voltage coming out. I've got my meter set right there. By the way, you can also pick these up on Amazon, wherever. The cheap one, I've had this thing for like 10 years, and I got it for like, I don't know, $8 or $9. They work just fine, especially for toy repair and stuff. So, negative to negative, positive to positive. I don't know if you can see that, but it's definitely moving. There you go. There you go. Yep, so it's moving. All right, so we've got our voltage. When I get done, I'm just basically sliding that off, and I'm all good. Now, if I can get these untangled, I have my wires. Now, you can make these shorter. I like to have them long, so I've got this over here. If you want to run a second set, and maybe even put them side by side right here and run another set of these wires, because like I said, they're cheap. It's like a 2-pack for $9. And then run the other set to these alligator clips that come with it. That just gives you another method of being able to test. Okay? So great little tip there. So I hope this was informative for you here on RV's Toy Box. We've got some other little how-tos coming up. There is a guy online. You should check out his channel. His called Toy Polly, and I'll put his link down below if I think about it. But I have a Blue Thunder helicopter from MTC. Picked it up cheap, and one of the things that I realized is, like most of them, the tail fins are broken off of it. Honestly, I didn't have one of those when I was a kid. I didn't even know it had tail fins until I looked at the pictures. But he did a great job of repairing that with some plastic. So one of the things that I've got coming up is I've already purchased the plastic. I've already purchased the paint. I've got the plastic pieces right here. He's got a little printout of the exact shape and size of the tail fins. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be doing. Yes, he does an exact step-by-step, but for me, I'm going to be doing it just so that I can do it, and you guys can watch if you really want to. I've got some other things that I've got coming up. I want to mention I've got a bunch of Star Trek stuff. I don't do a whole lot of videos on Star Trek, and I guess I should, especially with the background that I have with Star Trek. Neutral Zone Studios, and doing my fan films there, and meeting Vic and the whole team down there, Ray Tessie, great people down there at Neutral Zone Studios. I've got some new Ghostbuster stuff in. We've made a ton of rearranging. Even since the most recent walkthrough video that I've done, I've created a whole new Pop Island. I've got a whole new island here that we've opened up additional real estate. We're beginning to put everything into their franchises. So I've got like an A-Team section, Ghostbusters section, Blue Thunder, Xanadu, 2010 A Space Odyssey, Dukes of Hazzard, Batman. Everything's kind of developing into its own section. $6 Million Man, Chips, Jaws, Superman, Star Trek, Star Wars, just kind of putting them into their own franchises so I can collect more specifically, if that makes sense. So all my fellow collectors, toy repairers, whatever we want to call ourselves, well, let's just call ourselves tinkerers for today. Stay tuned, and we'll see you soon.
Step into the magic on my fun-filled stage. RV's Toy Box is great for kids of any age. From Star Trek to A-Team and retro toys too. Come join on my journey, making videos just for you.